heading on towards 6:45. Slight drizzle outside, and the temperature is 28 degrees Celsius at Kozhikode, where I am now. So let's look at applied linguistics. Okay, this is a very interesting classification because you are applying the principle of linguistics for various objectives. Okay, so there might be an overlap in some areas. We'll see how the term applied linguistics, how the classification overlaps into certain other areas. All right. So how do we apply linguistics? What are the principles we apply in various fields of our life, in various fields of scholarship? So probably the first set of principles that we apply relate to language learning teaching. Okay. So probably you'll remember Chomsky's famous principle of LAD, language acquisition device, which is something which is inbuilt into a system, which you can find in a normal person's brain. Okay, the system which enables you to learn language. So we are looking at how people learn language. Okay, you can discuss this under other heads like child language acquisition. Okay, so Chomsky would tell us that much of language is already built into the brain. We are only getting exposed to certain language, and through its lexis or through its vocabulary, we are applying those principles of language sentence construction which are wired into our brain. Okay, you get the point. Okay, so language teaching learning. Okay, what are the ways in which you can teach the second language? Okay, what are the problems that you encounter when you are learning a new language, such as first language interference? Okay, how do people learn language? How can a teacher facilitate language learning? Okay, how can learning problems be solved? All these come under language learning teaching. Okay, it's such a vast domain, you know. That's why we have a discipline called English language teaching, an entire discipline. Although, as we know, the principles which are discussed under English language teaching are applicable to the teaching learning of any other language. Okay, you can have German language teaching or Malayalam language teaching. Okay, the principles are basically the same. There's nothing peculiar about learning English. All right. So this is the first basic application of the principles of linguistics. Okay, language learning. Another well-known principle, you know this very well, translation. Yes, which, as we know, involves a large number of linguistic theories, principles, because primarily it's a matter of translating, matter of interaction, interface between any two languages. Primarily, I'm coming to it. Why translation is not a question of language alone, but certainly we use principles of linguistics when we translate. Okay, often quite unconsciously. Okay, so we know that there are words which can be the ideas of which can be translated, and with slight changes. Okay, combinations. For example, in English we have a word skyscraper for a tall building. A tall building which is supposed to scrape the sky, which brushes against the sky. So tall. Okay. So the same idea you get in the Malayalam expression Ambalachumbi. Okay. So in Ambalachumbi, as we know, the metaphor is slightly different. The tall buildings do not scrape against the sky. Instead, they kiss the sky. Ambalachumbi. Ambaratachumbi. Okay. So we know that these two combinations are comparable, and that in languages, when they borrow items from other languages, They borrow the general idea but give their own combination scheme to these the words which are part of which together constitute this idea. Okay. So direct translation, one-to-one translations, uh, one-to-many translation, where you need to over-translate. A particular expression is not available in your language, so you explain it. Under-translate, where such a large phrase is not necessary, so you use only one word, okay, etc., etc. So all these are principles of linguistics which you employ in translation. Polysemy, a word having different meanings. Okay, uh, several words having similar meanings, closely related meanings, what we call synonymy in linguistics. So we apply principles of linguistics to uh, translation. Okay, so this is one aspect of one way that you translate. Okay, this is, we are translating manually. We are applying, the translator is applying the principles of linguistics in translating a text. All right, you can have a translation which is aided by a computer. It's called a computer aided translation. So here there is some work to be done. You have to program language into the computer. You have to prepare equivalence between two uh, languages so that if you key the text and press enter, the computer will give out the translation. Okay. So this is a very complicated process, as you know. Okay, because to to program nearly the entire corpus of two languages into the computer is nearly impossible. We know that, which is why machine-aided or computer-aided translations are never perfect. You know, they've heard of the story of the Chinese translator working on the Bible phrase, biblical phrase. The spirit is strong, but the flesh is weak. Which means your body is weak, but your mind, your soul is strong. So it was translated into Chinese, and the Chinese translator back translated it into English. And the two translators looked at the screen and they were astounded because the back translation read, the the wine is good, but the meat is rotten. So spirit was translated as wine, and flesh, in the sense of your body, was translated literally as meat. That's how it works. Your machine translation has a number of limitations. It has a number of limitations because a language is not something that you can code easily into a program. Okay, giving what are called translation rules, algorithms, so that the computer can directly translate into the target language. Okay, but it's useful in a limited way. You can translate a set of sentences. Okay, you can program the computer to translate a set of what you call conventional or set sentences. Okay, formal sentences which are available in the language already and which uh, are sort of repetitive, like a computer announcing the timing of trains or aircraft. Okay, so only certain parameters need to be changed: time, the type of aircraft, its company, arrive destination, etc., etc. Other sentences are common. Okay, so for such translation, machine translation is useful. And linguistic rules play a key role in translating, in making available what we call the algorithms, ALGORITHMS algorithms, or translation rules for translation. Okay, now you know what is happening. Now let's move on. These are the these are not the only resources which linguistics provides for uh, practical application. Think of let us say uh, people who have uh, disorders of language production. Okay. So you and I, we are sitting here, we can understand each other perfectly. We can use language perfectly. Okay. We don't have a problem with language, but there are people suffer from language disorders. So what are some of these disorders? Okay, remember that most of these disorders are the result of some incident in your life, an accident, for example, in which parts of your brain are damaged, some traumatic experience, which completely upsets the functioning of your brain. All these are reasons why you develop language disorders. All right. So when you develop language disorders, they have to be treated. And to treat them, you have to apply principles of linguistics besides principles of neurology, how the brain works. Okay. So first you recognize the problem. You uh, identify the problem. For example, there are basically two types of linguistic disorders. They are called linguistic disorders are basically called aphasia. Aphasia should not be confused with amnesia. Amnesia is a memory problem. You forget things. Okay. You forget who you are. You forget your relatives. Aphasia, APHASIA, is a language disorder. Okay. So two kinds of language disorders have been identified. One of them is uh, grammatical aphasia. Okay, you know the words. Okay, you know all the words well. Okay, but you have a problem connecting them. You have a problem speaking in proper connected speech. So instead of saying, for example, that there are 5 branches in applied linguistics, the person who's afflicted with uh, grammatical aphasia would say 5 branches, linguistics, uh, practical, etc. Utterly, even mixing up the order of words. Okay. Not to speak about the inability to produce coherent, grammatically acceptable sentences. This is very common. This is very common among uh, aphasia patients. Two, the second major type of aphasia is lexical aphasia. Lexical, vocabulary, relating to vocabulary. The difficulty to remember people's names. Okay. I have been called by several names by an aphasia afflicted person. Sadanandan was my name for some time. Okay. So this is very common. People forgetting names. Okay. Names of people, names of objects. Okay. Not any people, but even your nearest relatives. I know a person who forgot the name of his wife. Okay. Okay. So such problems are common. So the linguistics helps you to identify these problems and to stimulate the person's uh, linguistic performance. Okay. There are various devices you can do. Part of this is, as I told you earlier, part of this falls under psycholinguistics, like language learning, for example. You have to find out the basic impediments of language learning. Okay. So problems like first language interference are only part of the problem. There are other problems like inhibition, okay, nervousness when you are learning. These two things very badly inhibit language learning. So you have a problem, all right? But uh, in applied linguistics, these problems are discussed or related to the ways in which language learning is facilitated by the constitution of your brain. Uh, the linguistic, the language acquisition device that Chomsky talked about. So remember these basic things: language learning, translation, treating language disorders, and in translation you can include computer-aided translation. Okay.